Reprints. Let's talk all things Pokemon card reprints. This is one of those videos where you don't need to tune in to what's actually on the video here. It's just me having a conversation about reprints. So if you want to put it on in the car while you're going for a drive, if you want to put it on your headphones while you're at the gym or going for a walk, if you just want to leave it on the telly in the background while you're doing some housework, telly. Do you guys and girls in the US say telly, or is that just more an Australian thing? Anyway, television. If you want to leave it on the television while you're doing some housework, that's also perfectly fine. Let's jump straight into it. Reprints. This is one of those hot words when it comes to the Pokemon card investing space, isn't it? It's the word that either gets people excited, gets them scared, gets them somewhere in between that realm. And one of the things where I think it's leading to some perhaps excitement for some people is actually being able to open some somewhat affordable product. Because the space we're in at the moment at the hobby, everything is just so damn expensive. In fact, I don't know if I've ever seen it this expensive. Like, just go anywhere and try and find a reasonably priced booster box. In fact, I don't think there's any booster box under $200 US. I don't think there's any booster box probably under $230 US at the moment. It's just crazy how damn expensive everything is. And here's the point when it comes to reprints. This isn't a video of me saying, reprints are coming, because when I talk to everyone in the space, whether it's local LGSs or online stores, it doesn't look like there's any reprints coming around the corner. Everyone is still getting restocks. I can't speak for the US, I can't speak for Europe, but down here in Australia, there's still plenty of restocks coming. Like, things come in dribs and drabs. That doesn't mean it's reprinted. It just means there's more supply of already existed printed stock coming through. Like, my local LGS will occasionally get a small restock of Destined Rivals booster boxes. They'll occasionally get restocks of 151. We see that at Kmart here in Australia. We see it in EB Games here in Australia, which is, EB Games is Australia's version of GameStop over there in the US. You see little dribs and drabs of product coming through, and what do you know? If it's something somewhat interesting, or anything Pokemon at the moment, it gets completely eaten up before, an hour passes, it seems. If Kmart gets something, if EB Games gets something, if my local LGS gets something, it's gone within an hour or two, or people just find out about it and buy it. And most places, particularly local LGSs, generally have some sort of supply limit on tap, where you can only buy yourself, one booster box or one Elite Trainer box, so that the product gets spread out and not one single person buys it up completely. So that's the first statement I want to make about reprints at the moment, is there doesn't seem to be anything formal in place. Now, the next two things I want to explore is, one, how big a reprint do we need to get to actually impact the price on sealed products? And then the second thing I want to talk about is the journey around reprints. So I guess a set's inception, its reprints, and then what happens when it finally goes out of rotation, and the fact of the matter being that we're probably not going to ever see another reprint again. So let's talk about that first topic. How big a reprint do we actually need to have of a particular set to see an impact? And if I think back in history, particularly modern history, because we've had massive eras through COVID, and there was stimulus checks for people to spend money. Everyone was stuck at home. There was Logan Paul and other influencers getting involved in hyping up the hobby, and Pokemon made a massive resurgence, especially with the TCG, and it all went crazy, etc. And look, that was the first sort of moment where we had this massive dichotomy between supply and demand, and now we're seeing a more natural impact between supply and demand, where demand is just eating up all the supply. Like, the supply just can't outweigh the demand. It's insane what we're getting at the moment, and this is all natural. Like, there's no influence coming other than essentially influencers in the space. Maybe YouTube channels, rip and shippers, everything else in between. This isn't a video about that, but you get the idea there. So how big a reprint do we actually need to have? And like I said, if we go back in time a little bit, there were some products in the past, particularly in Sword and Shield era, that did get absolutely squashed with price. Battle Styles, when it first came out, was expensive because it was at a period in the hobby where it was super, super hyped up. The hobby was crazy at that time when Battle Styles come out. And you know what? Once the extra supply came and the reprint came for Battle Styles, it squashed it. We saw Darkness Ablaze get heavy booster box reprint, which absolutely squashed the price. We saw Vivid Voltage, which was a very sought after Pokemon card set when it first came out, get heavy reprints, which absolutely squashed the price. Now, some of those sets have failed to recover. And there's a really important takeaway that we need to take from that. And that is, if it's a somewhat poor set, a reprint will squash the price and affect the price more than if it's a strong set. And here's my argument towards that. So we saw reprints, like I said, in the Sword and Shield era for sets like Vivid Voltage and Darkness Ablaze. And price got absolutely hammered on those, and it's remained relatively low. I think we've only just recently seen those boxes tick back up above, $200. I think they're probably both over $220 now. It's the same thing. You can't buy any booster box, Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet, for like below $220. On the other hand, slightly stronger sets, when they get reprints, even mid-tier sets, so if it's a popular time, even mid-tier sets, like, remember that reprint we got, when was it? It wasn't too far ago. It was maybe just over 18 months ago. We had Scarlet and Violet base, Silver Tempest, and Lost Origin get reprints. And what do you know, Silver Tempest and Lost Origin both rebounded like absolutely crazy. They jumped back in price and reached all-time highs very, very quickly thereafter once they got reprinted. And there's a reason for that. So there's two takeaways here. The first takeaway is reprints will squash poor sets for a longer period of time than what they'll squash good sets. Good sets will rebound back relatively quickly and can reach all-time new highs. And the reason they can reach all-time new highs is because the timing around the reprint. If a reprint happens very late in its life cycle, and this is what I was going to get into later in the second part of this video, or the second topic I was going to discuss, which is the life cycle of a set and once it goes out of rotation. So if a reprint happens, like let's say someone's hanging on for a reprint, like Lost Origin. People are going, when's it getting reprinted? When does it get reprinted? And it's going up in price. And then it gets reprinted, it brings the price back down a little bit. But if it's only 3 months out of going out of rotation, well, most people, or the general consensus would say, well, that's its last reprint ever. So we better damn well buy it at the cheapest we're ever going to see it. And that's why it rebounds to all-time highs really quickly. So there's actually some positives to a reprint. And now that's the second part of this video that I wanted to get into, is the life cycle behind sets, because we're going to have a fair few Scarlet and Violet sets that are actually about to go out of rotation. It's April next year, and it's going to come around before we know it. Like, it's literally 8 months away, and we're going to have multiple Scarlet and Violet sets out of rotation. Paldea Evolve being one of them. Paldea Evolve probably being the best booster box that we're going to see go out of rotation from the first quarter, or third I should say, of Scarlet and Violet. Now, what happens there? So let's say, for argument's sake, hypothetically, TPCI comes out and they go, we've just reprinted a somewhat decent amount of Paldea Evolve. What do you think's actually going to happen? Because I feel that's what everyone's hanging out for at the moment. They're hanging out for reprints to happen, and a massive one at that, and for it to absolutely squash box prices. I haven't even looked what Paldea Evolve's current booster box price is, but I'm just going to pluck a number out. Is it like $320 or something? I actually haven't looked, and I should have before this video, but if you know me, most of the time you know that I just talk off the cuff because I like to talk conversationally and just, like I'm talking to mates here. So anyway, let's say it's $320 for a Paldea Evolve booster box. Could be more, could be 350. I don't know. Let's say it is 320 though. And everyone's going, well, let's get a massive reprint of this. Is going to be awesome. Then we can get cheap Paldea Evolve. But what do you think is going to happen? Even if it's a very decent sized reprint, what's it going to do? You know what it's going to do? It's going to prove to people that, hold on, let's say it happens in 3 months' time, in October or November, and Paldea Evolve gets reprinted. People are going to go, hold on, this set's only 5 or 6 months out of rotation. This is the last time Paldea Evolved is ever going to get reprinted. So what do you think is going to happen? People are going to dive in and try and get it as cheap as possible. Let's say that $320 price that roughly is at the moment drops down to $250 a box, or even $220 a box, and it's one of the cheapest Scarlet and Violet booster boxes you can buy. What do you think people are going to do? They're going to flock to it and buy it up heavy as quickly as they possibly can. And what's going to happen in that scenario? It's going to rebound straight back up to where it was just as quickly. And then what's going to happen? Once it goes out of rotation, it's going to reach all-time new heights. It's going to do exactly what Lost Origin did when that got reprinted nearly 2 years ago now. So it begs the question, what size reprint do we actually need to squash these box prices at the moment? And do we even need to do that? Well, I mean, if you want to open product, of course, if you want to buy in at a lower price, of course we need to do that. But let's talk about that life cycle. So a set comes out, like Destined Rivals at the moment, and depending whether it's bad, somewhere in the middle, or good, depends on how it'll perform out of the gate. And clearly, Destined Rivals is a good set. Is it as good as Evolving Skies? No. Is it the best booster box from the whole Scarlet and Violet era? In my opinion, yes, it is. And as a result, we can park that in the good section. It is a good booster box. So it's coming out of the gate really, really strong. It's coming with very, very expensive prices. Will we see a reprint of Destined Rivals? I mean, geez, they'd have to be stupid not to reprint it, wouldn't they? Because whatever they print is going to sell. Like, surely we're going to see a Destined Rivals reprint. I'm not saying 100% that's going to happen, but surely we will. And what? Maybe it might drop box prices to 300, like sub 300. Will it go to 260? Will it go to 250? Will it go to 230? Will it be 280 and then quickly rise back up? But how big a reprint does that need to be for it to be squashed? And no one really knows the answer to that question. But Destined Rivals comes out. It's reached all-time highs already because it's just got so much demand for it. Let's say it does cop a decent size reprint in, let's say it's this November or something. It cops a decent size reprint, it drops it to 270. Well, what's going to happen? It's going to very quickly climb back up to 300 because there's really, really strong demand for that set because it's a good set. Let's say they reprinted a slightly poorer set, which is a very, close together set like Stellar Crown. It's not too far before Destined Rivals. Let's say that got quite a heavy reprint. What do you think is going to happen there? It's probably going to squash it for longer. Will it do something like Vivid Voltage or Destined Rivals did? Vivid Voltage or Darkness of Plays did? Probably not quite that bad, but it could squash it and hold its lower price for a longer period of time because it's not as good a set as Destined Rivals. Either way, both of those sets, Destined Rivals and Stellar Crown, will eventually maybe get some level of reprint, and then eventually they'll get close to going out of rotation. And this is just the life cycle that Pokemon booster boxes take. And as they get closer and closer to being out of the cycle of being in-play formatted sets where, they're subject to reprints, once they hop out of rotation, well, sky's the limit, isn't it? And the better the booster box, the better it's going to perform. We do have sets, of course, like Scarlet and Violet Base and Rebel Clash that never got reprinted, which have performed quite well. That's just due to low supply. But as we can see, the better sets from Sword and Shield, the better sets from Sun and Moon, the better sets from X and Y are just reaching insane heights at the moment because they're out of rotation now. It's a, what's that word? Deflationary asset. Like more and more as time goes by getting open, which means less and less get sealed or are staying sealed. And as a result, it becomes rarer and rarer. And as a result of that, it's just going up and up in price. So I think we've pretty much covered off on reprints. We've talked a few things just to summarize this whole video. One is that there is no word of any major reprints coming for booster boxes at the moment. The second thing we covered in this video is about, what impact will a reprint even have on Scarlet and Violet sets at the moment, particularly those sets like Scarlet and Violet Base, Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames that are about to go out of rotation. Even if they do get reprinted, people are going to go, well, that's our last chance to pick them up. And thirdly, to summarize the whole video, we talked about that life cycle of a booster box and good versus bad and what could be a better investment, particularly once it goes out of rotation. So there we go, reprints. It's the golden word when it comes to Pokemon cards. I'm Michael, thanks heaps for tuning in. Your support means a lot. Of course, Collector is the sponsor of this video. Fantastic app. There'll be a link in the description to download it. I'm Michael, PokeOz. Catch everyone next time.